On this week's episode, some new Model Y news, the Boring Company gets less boring, and Blue Origin has a big friggin' rocket. Hello and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future, the podcast where we talk about the cool stuff that's coming up on the horizon that's going to make our future totally crazy. This is episode 13, Lucky 13.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Scott from the Answers with Joe YouTube channel, and with me is the Timmer daughter.
Hi guys, it's me, Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut from That Stuff That I Do. And also with us is Ben.
What's up, guys? It's Ben Solons from Teslanomics and the stuff that Tim does, apparently. I don't know.
we're all the Tim.
Yeah. So Tim betrayed us this week by shaving. We had a pact, and...
It's trimmed, not shaven.
If you guys aren't seeing this on YouTube, you need to go watch it on YouTube.
No, it's just a face. It's got a little guy on it with some little stubs.
He trimmed it with a razor.
No, this is a one guard. What are you guys talking about? This is normal. This is how I trim once a month or whatever.
So it was nice having Tim on the show, everyone.
Okay. I know. I look like a Cabbage Patch Kid.
That's how diverse we are on this show. Like, you can't even have a different beard and stay.
We all have to have exact aligning thoughts, physical attributes, and diversification. Like, there's no diversification here.
That's it. 100%.
White men with little beards. Joe.
New band name.
So this is episode 13. This is the episode where we don't quite land on the moon, but we circle around the moon. Halfway through this episode, the oxygen tanks will explode, and
ouch,
we'll have a problem.
Nice reference. I think that was our show last week. We salvaged the crap out of that one. I don't know if you guys noticed.
True. Last week,
I full-blown, I was just sitting here, and all of a sudden, everything just turned off. Not even a power outage, just my computer just turned off, and everything went down. And then, Ben, you lost your audio to the sea.
We had multiple redundancies, and they all failed. So, but
everything went fine for me.
Oh yeah,
Joe is always the perfect one
because I'm the one that's not recording.
Yeah,
that is true. That
might be why.
Speaking of the perfect one, Joe, what do you have for us this week?
I have a rant.
Yes, I love it.
So I know I'm like a broken record on this. I'm like constantly talking about the FUD and the negative stories and the headlines and stuff like that. Well, Elon was on 60 Minutes this last week, and it's always news whenever he does an interview. He always says something a little bit scandalous. I think the thing that I was surprised wasn't as scandalous as I thought it would be was he said that he has no respect for the SEC. I thought that would be all over everything. But apparently that wasn't scandalous enough. So Wired did an article where they claimed that Elon abused Autopilot in this interview. And the point that they were trying to make was that, they always say, keep your hands on the wheel and, be alert at all times when you're on autopilot. And there it is. It's up. And when he was showing the car off to Leslie Stahl, they're doing a drive around, he was showing how autopilot works. So he put an autopilot, raised his hands and kind of put his, folded his hands up to his chest so that everybody could see that he wasn't steering the car. And they used that to write a headline that says, even Elon Musk abuses Tesla's autopilot, and then goes on to show or talk about how dangerous it is. And yes, sigh. It's like they can't not, create FUD with their headlines. And so, so that's Jack Stewart. Let's call out Jack Stewart. Do you guys know what the oh my God, I'm blanking on it now, of course. Great.
The words?
The Dunning-Kruger syndrome. That's what I'm thinking of.
I've heard that, but I don't remember what it is. Dunning-Kruger
is the psychological phenomenon where the less you know about something, wow, you pulled that up fast. The less you know about something, the more confidence you have in it, in your beliefs. Yeah. So there's actually, and you can kind of see it on the little chart that was up just a second ago, but when it kind of follows a bit of a curve. So when you first learn about a topic, you don't have a lot of confidence in your beliefs because you just heard about it. So you know there's not much that you know about it.
Right.
But then as you learn a little bit more, your confidence goes through the roof, and you decide, as you can see, you decide that you know a whole lot about it. But then the more you look into it, you realize, oh, there's all this nuance to it. There's all these details. There's all these things I didn't know about. You realize how much you didn't know, and your confidence goes back down. And then over time, as you learn more and more and more, you get to the point where it's like, okay, I think I actually know more than most people on this subject. You become a bit of an expert, and your confidence goes back up. But the basic gist of the Dunning-Kruger effect is the less you know about something, the more confidence you have. Yeah. Which I think Charles Bukowski, quoted. He said one time that the problem with the world is that dumb people are full of confidence and smart people are full of doubts. But the reason the reason it made me think of this whole article that I was talking about the Elon abusing Autopilot or whatever, is I think we live in a world that is run by the Dunning-Kruger effect these days, because people don't really read the articles anymore. 90% of what you see as you're scrolling through news feeds and social media is headlines and thumbnails, right? Mm-hmm. And the people who run websites, as we all know, they want to get clicks. They want to get people to look at their website. The irony is that most people don't. They just see the headline. But they want you to look at the article, so they write the most salacious headline they possibly can. And that informs the way we take in our information. So like 90% of what we see are the headlines, and 90% of the headlines are salacious clickbait. And what that leads to, I think, is people get a lot of the same pieces of information. They get a whole lot of very shallow information. Yeah. Right? Just little bitty pieces of information, but they get a lot of that. So it gives them a whole lot of confidence on a subject that they don't really even know anything about because they didn't even read the articles. And that was a shower thought of mine, I guess. I was just, it just occurred to me that like there's a tie-in between this massive Dunning-Kruger effect that we see in the world today where, and I think this leads to the crazy conspiracy theory ideas and, the moon landing was a hoax, thanks Stephen Curry. Oh
God, yeah.
And people believe these like crazy things because they get like a little bit of information and they get a lot of it. They see it in a lot of different places. Of course, social media also creates echo chambers where we just get the same information fed to us over and over again. And yeah, you get a whole lot of really shallow information. There's no
confirmation bias too. Like you start thinking, you might think a little bit, and then it just gets triggered every time you see anything that's related to that. And now you're going, oh yeah. See.
Well, see, I'm right. What do you know? I'm right.
Yeah. To that point, in sites like Facebook and others, you don't even have to click on something for it to recognize that you are consuming it. You just have to pause on it long enough. So if you scrolled to an article and stopped, you could have just walked away from your computer, but because you stopped there, it'll record your scroll pattern and read that as, oh, you probably read that little headline and the little quip underneath it. So even if you don't click on it, it's going to recognize that you consumed it, and then if you stay there long enough, start sending you more of things like that, kind of compounding this effect. I feel like we need a new graph there. Let me pull that back up. So this is super interesting, this Dunning-Kruger thing, but I feel like the line just shoots right up to confidence. In the very beginning, we have no knowledge. And then the new line should be like social media just like carries you over to the expert phase, because I think in today's world, it's easy to pretend to be an expert on something. You can literally Google search something for 2 seconds, like the Dunning-Kruger effect, which I did while we were talking here. and all of a sudden you're an expert on it. So it's almost like you don't ever actually have that middle stage of like low confidence. Ooh, there's more to this than I originally thought. It's just these little tiny searches and things transport you from I have super high confidence, but I don't know anything, to, oh, I'm now an expert and I still have super high confidence.
No, I think that's just exactly the beginning of the bell curve there, is literally just that. It's that, like, I know nothing, but I'm super confident. You know, it's not necessarily because the line really is truly when you're an expert on it. You know, like, I think that's exactly what you're describing is the exact phenomenon, period, like in the beginning of the bell curve. Because it is like, for instance, I had so many people, and I know I don't need to dwell on this, but people getting so mad at me saying like an Amazon shill, and that like I got paid by Amazon and I'm a terrible science communicator and no wonder I'm not an astronaut, stuff like really personal attacks, because they said, you idiot, Falcon Heavy is capable of 63 metric tons to orbit. It's right here on Wikipedia. And I'm like, guys, I said in the beginning of the video and 3 times throughout it that we're going to be saying using full reusability of the Falcon Heavy, which is 30 tons. And I cite my sources on my website, do all this stuff. Like, you Googled really quick because it's a funny number. It is a funny number. You sit there and you go, it has so much thrust. Why is it capable of such a low amount of payload? Well, if you actually did more than Google Falcon Heavy payload capacity and listen to the circumstances in which I'm going to be comparing these vehicles, you'll find out it's 30 tons and that I'm not an idiot. Like, I could have Googled, and I did. You know, like, my dad used to always say, you don't know enough yet to know how much you don't know. Mm-hmm. Like, all the time. He'd always tell me that. Like, you don't even know enough to know how much you don't know about this, Tim. Like, you know, when I was 16, I'm sitting there, like, modifying cars, you know, like, telling him, like, yeah, I'll throw a big turbo on this, you know, 1992 Honda Civic Turbo, Dad. I'll get 400 horsepower out of it. No problem. He's like, you don't even know enough to know how much you don't know. Like,
and the whole bell housing will explode. Right?
Yeah, and he's like, dude, you're going to spend 16 grand on something that's going to blow up in 100 miles, you know, and you could have just bought a faster car. And I'm like, Dad, no, come on, Dad.
Yeah.
It's easy. Look, a guy talked about it on a forum here.
That's a perfect example of the Dunning-Kruger effect, that you don't know how much you don't know. It's also like they say, you're just smart enough to be dangerous, or you know just enough to be dangerous. You know just enough to have the confidence to get yourself into trouble, because there's stuff that you don't know that you're going to run into, and
Yep. And that's why armchair engineering is so annoying to, I think, any, like, of us that, like, you know, I'm probably right at the top of that, like, downward spiral where it's humbling. And you're like, oh my God, no wonder there's thousands of engineers that work at SpaceX. And, like, no wonder there's thousands of people that spend 60, 70, 80 hours a week on this stuff, because it's insane. Like, it's rocket science fact.
Well, I get this all the time when people talk about Tesla and they say, why don't they just add this feature? And as someone that's worked in tech for almost 20 years, I can guarantee you that anything that it may sound so easy from the outside, just add this. When you really break down what is required to make that little tiny feature happen, it is a mountain of things that you never considered. And a lot of that is because you don't know what's behind the scenes and what it takes. You know, like, imagine the whole dash cam thing. It's like, well, why isn't this just built in? Why do I have to add a USB stick? Why do I have to do all these things? And it's like, well, when you start to break down, okay, the storage on the car and how does it transmit that volume of data to the cloud on a regular basis? Like when you start to really break down all the little bits and then compare that with what is already existing, it's not nearly as easy as anything ever seemed. You know, if you're starting from scratch, it's easy to draw things up, but when you start to implement them is when all those things kind of come out, right? And so that's where, I mean, this is a big thing. But back to the point of these kind of clickbait headlines, it is like, it would be great if there was some way, some browser plugin or some way for us to help understand, like, what is more valid, what is, like, has substance to it, and what is just kind of clickbait nonsense. Like, I, for one, am an appreciator of good clickbait, but it needs to also deliver, right? I actually kind of find it like funny when I hear something, I'm like, what? And then I click and I'm like, okay, that was clever.
But the danger is that you're in the minority.
This is like the nonsense stuff where it's like people are only going to see that and then move on. You know?
But yeah, that's the problem, is you're in the minority that would actually click through and get far enough to realize, like, the irony or the sarcasm.
Yeah,
the guys. We've talked about this on the show before, where, you know, like, you talked about that video you made And I think I even mentioned that, like, the Onion article or whatever that said, like, no one reads headlines or whatever or something. I don't remember. Yeah. Or
and then you start reading it and it's about something totally different, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, so I've had multiple cases of this on my own because I like to use satire is the way I consider it, where I say something, but I mean something totally different. And one of those just recently, not satire, didn't mean this at all, but I had a video saying, I'm ending Teslanomics live. Well, people just saw I'm ending Teslanomics. And so I've got tons of email like, oh my God, I love your show. What are you doing? How could you? I'm like, no. The show is still continuing. I'm just not doing the live show, which was literally like the fourth word in that sentence.
Which also means they didn't watch the video.
Exactly.
Well, we should just say that's nice that they're like, oh no, your channels are going away. Of course, it's nice that they wanted to keep you around, but then they're like, well, watch the freaking video.
Yeah. You don't just read the headline and go straight to the comments, which I think is probably a common behavior there.
That's something I'm going to bring up to my YouTube creator person. Would be a tool for certain channels if you want to enable it to make it so they have to make it a certain length into your video before you can comment. Did we talk about this already?
Yeah, that's trickier again than it sounds probably. As someone, because I used to work at Pluralsight and we had an online video thing, and there was actually some stuff we did before around looking at comments and things that happened before the person could have ever possibly consumed the content. Like if it was a 5-minute piece of content, but they comment 10 seconds into the video playing, and they're like, oh my God, this is so wrong, or something like that.
Right.
It's 63 tons, Tim.
Right.
Whatever. It's like you actually didn't watch the video. It would be interesting if it was like comments were held in sort of a purgatory until you reached a certain point in the video. But it'd be super hard to moderate, man. I don't know if that would. I kind of like just the freeform openness of it, because otherwise I think people would just get frustrated.
Probably. I want to have
the idea of having like a little scale or a color chart or something next to the people's comments that show how much they actually watched of the video before they commented.
That would be really.
I like the idea of that.
Just to disclose it, like that's kind of funny because then it puts a little bit of social pressure on them.
Or if like a comment got weight based on how much they watched. So if they watched the whole video before commenting, then their comment would have like a higher weight than other comments. Right.
That's funny.
Replies are fine, but replies would still be totally open. But an actual original comment. Yeah. So then if you just jumped in and were like, blah, 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 this is garbage, I hate this guy. It's like, cool. Well, because you didn't watch the video, your comment's actually never going to be seen practically. Yeah.
And this is now an episode of YouTubers complaining about life on YouTube. But it's true, though. Like, people don't... we talk about this all the time. But, yeah, Joe, Dunning-Kruger effect is... How do we counter that?
I think
education? Shirts that say, why don't you just... ... Yeah. And then we can all just wear them and teach people, like, if you're ever saying, why don't you just... It's probably a good reason.
It's like RTFM, but, like, watch the video version of that.
Yeah. So over Thanksgiving, this is sort of on the same topic, I watched there was a Frontline series on Facebook that actually came out at the beginning of November or the end of October. Anyway, it was about a month old when I saw it, and it was around Thanksgiving. But anyway, it was a 2-part series on Facebook. And I gotta say, I've been, I don't want to say a hater of Facebook for a while, but I've been short, let's say, on Facebook for a while just because of their practices and having been on it and run, stuff on it and stuff. No, it made me less of a fan watching that. Because
you were already short and now you're even shorter.
Yeah. I mean, because they had interviews with former like executives there that were talking about, a lot of it was about the lead up to the 2016 election and the fake news that was going around and all that kind of stuff. But it was also talking about overseas. I want to say in Myanmar, there was like ethnic cleansing going on and genocide and stuff. And they were using Facebook to make that happen, to like organize that kind of stuff. And anyway, the point is, like, these executives were talking about, oh yeah, there were like all these warnings coming in that this was happening and people were using our platform to do despicable, horrible things. And they just kept on keeping on and didn't, pay attention to it. They didn't, they have this very standoff and pie in the sky idea that, like, if you connect everybody in the world, then we'll all come together and we'll all have a Coke and sing a jingle together. But we are not that species, unfortunately.
Right.
That
was the flaw, was that people are inherently good.
Exactly. And when they started seeing evidence that, this is going in a wrong direction, instead of taking the steps necessary, which were going to be very huge, comprehensive steps and probably cost a lot of money, well, they didn't want to do that. Because at that point they had their IPO, they were on the stock market, they were making money, shareholders and all that kind of stuff, and they didn't want to rock that boat. So they just kind of kept on doing their thing, and it really upset
I wonder.
me.
The thing I wonder about all this is, and recognizing that I am slightly biased because I used to work there, but like, how much of this is Facebook's fault versus them just being the telephone, essentially?
The catalyst.
Yeah, like is the telephone bad, or the internet? Was the internet a bad idea? Like has the internet caused more harm than good? And those conversations, I don't think really come up that much because there isn't like a person to blame. But like, we can't say, Al Gore, how dare you create the internet or whatever. You're a terrible person because of it. But we can say that about Facebook and Twitter and Reddit and, whatever, pick your poison. So I wonder if this phenomenon, people, being angry at Facebook, is just because we have somebody to point the finger at, or if it's like they truly did something bad. Because the way I think of these things is just more abstractly is like it's a technology that enables a thing. People are then use that to do bad things. But that's how all technologies really are.
Here's another example, though. Some of it is in like the algorithms, and it is in the programming that is explicit and actually enables. So therefore, a conscious decision at some point was made that's like, hey, clickbaits are great for us. Like, it feeds more traffic. It does all this. Like,
that's the question. Did somebody actually make that decision, or did the algorithm automatically decide that? Like that's what I'm getting at. Like did the platform? Let's say the design was keep people engaged as long as possible. Find things, whatever those things are, that keep people engaged, and just do more of them.
So like the cause and effect. It's not necessarily like they programmed it to feed misinformation per se or whatever the phenomenon is.
Misinformation just happened to have that psychological effect on people, and it saw that as a positive signal, so it reinforced that. Like that's what I'm trying to get at. Like did people decide they wanted to do something malicious, or was the system just designed with this utopian view, which turned out to be not reality? And by that point, it kind of, Pandora's box. Like it's out, and it's really hard to rein back in. Like that's the thing I wonder. And I'm not saying I'm for or against Facebook at all. Right, I'm just trying to understand, like, because you could replace Facebook with Google, for example, like Google going and building a censored search engine in China. A lot of people are really pissed about that. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, there's already a search engine in China that is totally way over censored, and this one will be less so. So is that better or worse? Like, I really wonder, is the media, in fact, the episodes or documentaries like this, influencing our psychology in this way? Or are those facts actually true? Did somebody at Facebook actually say, yes, we want clickbait, yes, we want misinformation, yes, let's do this because we can sell more ads? Like, as someone that's been there and knows a lot of people there, I can't see that actually being the case. But I'm not saying that they're not to blame at all in some ways. I think it was probably more of like a overly engineered, optimistic thing originally that just got completely out of control. And now it's like, oh crap. The bad guys figured out how to use it, and we don't know how to stop it.
Well, that was a common theme in the interviews on that Frontline piece, was all these executives over and over again saying we were just really slow to catch on to what was happening and to make any changes. And I think they're trying. They're probably scrambling, but it does open up a much wider debate of, do these social media platforms have a responsibility to monitor or control what goes on it? And if they did, wouldn't people just go somewhere else anyway? Because anybody could just start up another,
look at
chat
Reddit.
room somewhere or something.
Right? I mean, Facebook has a hate speech thing where you can't have hate speech on there, but Reddit clearly allows that kind of stuff. So whatever, And if they're gone, I didn't ever. There were a few people. Who was it? Cloudflare or somebody disabled a bunch of Nazi or whatever you want to call it, white supremacist type websites, and so then, bam! Instantly overnight, a new company spun up to provide them those same services. And now it's like even more concentrated, because if you are, supportive of those things, you can go. You now know where to go, right? Before it was like mixed amongst everything else. Now it's like, ooh, I just go to this one place and I have it right there. Like there's even a Twitter, a variant of Twitter for people that whatever subscribe to that ideology. So yeah, like is the technology to blame? Are the people to blame? Is it that's where I just sit with this. Like,
you know what though? Forget the psychology, the human aspect of it. The thing that I hope we can start to learn from this lesson, really before it's too late, because notice it was like the theme is, we didn't really. It's a slow, subtle change. We didn't really notice it until we're like, oh, there's people murdering a bunch of people in Myanmar. Like the thing I'm nervous is AI. Like, what if this exact situation is like, we were just developing it and we're just watching it grow. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're like, oh, that's been shutting down hospitals around the entire world for a week and everyone's dying or something, and it was too late, like we saw these little things.
The decision-making process needs to have a human element, right? Because if you just look at it from a pure raw numbers standpoint, you could something like that. Oh, well, this hospital is in an area with people that don't contribute to society in a very high economical way. So we're just gonna let them die, right? Like from a computer standpoint, that could be a totally logical decision to make.
Mm-hmm. So it's an insurance
super dangerous,
company.
Right? It's what? Yeah, it's an insurance company.
So it's an insurance company.
Yeah.
Dang.
Squads, right?
Dang, guys.
See how dark this can get real quick?
Yeah.
We went sad and weird and all over the place this morning already.
Well,
speaking of going deep.
Tell you what, somebody cheer me up.
Well, next week, I will be going. Are you guys going to the Boring Company thing?
I'm not boring enough.
I've not gotten an invitation.
Yeah.
Well, it's a public event, so consider this your invitation.
Not all of us live in California.
As well as anyone else listening, watching. So Elon tweeted that the Boring Company will be hosting or launching, I guess it's test tunnel here. Let me pull this up for you guys on the YouTube so you can see what's going on with it. Enough of the Elon abusing things, and
now he's going to abuse the earth by digging in it.
So this was a surprise. Sort of. So the Boring Company test unveiling, I don't know what they want to call it. Product launch is what Elon calls it. We'll call it a product launch. Was supposed to be on the 12th. That was yesterday. Now it's on the 18th, so that's next Tuesday. And he said it's more than a tunnel opening. It will include a modded but fully road legal autonomous transport cars and ground to tunnel car elevators. So.
Dang.
Fully road legal autonomous transport cars, as opposed to cars that aren't made for transport, apparently. Okay, so they have a fully autonomous vehicle, or what? What does that even mean? I mean,
well, wait.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is the first time I've seen this, so I'm just totally speculating. But maybe he's talking about like their sleds, like the transport cars, the human transporters, not like a car that we drive, but like the cars that's going to be moving the people in the tunnels.
Right, but they had previously said that they were going away from that. So are they going back towards that or what? Because if you recall, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of pushback on Tesla, on the Boring Company, because in order to use one of these sleds, you would have to have a zero-emission vehicle, which are generally more expensive than non-zero emission vehicles. And so what that means is like this is a great service for rich people. when really, if you're trying to solve transportation, you need to not cater to just people that can afford Teslas, but people that can afford, a bus ticket. And so they were going away from the idea of cars traveling through this and going towards these pods that they would make. And I believe the pod, they said, would be based on the Model X architecture, and then, large enough to hold about 16 people. So that's what I think me and anyone that was following it was expecting. So when I saw this, it was like, okay, we're talking cars now, and we're talking car elevators, which was the original design, and we've already seen some demos of that. But yeah, it should be interesting, man. And
hold on though. Maybe it's still a mix. Maybe it's like the tunnels. There won't be tunnels to absolutely everything. So maybe it's still something where like these autonomous transporters, like they're talking about in the tunnel, can go and drive a few blocks away to a more convenient location and drop people off at the stadium, say, or drop people off here or there, and they're fully autonomous.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, one of the designs of the ground to tunnel car elevators, as he calls out here, was that they're very small, and so you could put them all over the place. Because that was something that they noted as obviously being a challenge, were these the last mile in transportation there, right? Getting you from the station to your destination. But this really should have. This sounds a little bit different than what we'd previously known. Is all I'm saying. But it should be exciting to see, and obviously I'll be trying to get some footage and do whatever I can while there.
Sweet.
Let me see if I can find that. Because they had a video of this with these stations. Yeah, let me show you guys this. Have you guys not seen this?
I've seen this.
Yeah. So this was what they originally, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see it. We have this these pods that you'd sit in, and it would go, that's the car to tunnel elevator. And then it would just shuttle you along in these pods. So I'm hoping to see this. This is what I think we were expecting, hopefully, and not like a Tesla elevator. Although if I can take my car on it, I will definitely be doing so.
Can you go back to the original tweet? What? Because I just want to.
Maybe. There it is.
No, will include modded but fully road legal autonomous cars and grand. Well, hang on. Maybe the like fully road legal is just saying like, hey, we could drive this on the road. Maybe that's literally exactly what we're seeing. In that footage. Just because it's road legal doesn't mean it's going to drive on the roads, right? Like this could be road legal. I don't know. So maybe it's just a Model X with a fancy thing, and it's legally still road legal.
Well, maybe it'll have the ability to ride around, maybe pick people up, and then go down underground.
Yeah, because I think they have this these stations that they're trying to get to, right? Actually, this one doesn't have it, but they did have these ideas of stations where it would be like, kind of just like a subway station, right? You'd go in and there'd be, but instead of just like a train coming with 300 people fitting on it, it would be like every, there'd just be 100 pods, and you just kind of go pop into one. Or it'd be kind of cool if it was like an elevator where you go up to a terminal and you punch in your destination and it says, cool, pod 6, and you go over and like everybody in pod 6 is going to that same spot. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's totally customizable. So like the pods don't have a predetermined destination, like just whatever. Like if everyone is going to the same place, boom, they're all going there as well.
Just using AI to determine like the shortest wait times and like all that stuff on the go.
That's just a simple database query, honestly. Yeah, it's not even that complicated. So
in this image we're seeing here, in the background, you see a Model S, it looks like, on one of those sleds about to go down underground. So I guess you could say this is sort of like a subway that cars can actually go on too?
Yeah, that's the question, though. I'm not really sure if that's part of it, because that was part of the original design, but they, I believe, got rid of that. In fact, I think they did an interview here, and I think it has it in there.
Yeah, they kind of got some flack for it, because that was the type of thing you were saying where, like, they were basically saying that people were complaining that, like, well, great, now you made tunnels for rich people, cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of agree that that's like a legit criticism, right? Okay, so the things this is their last interview they did with Elon, and I think his name is Steve Davis. who's kind of running the show, if I understand right. But they have these pods, and the pods will have up to 16 passengers. It'll be a $1 fare. It will go 150 miles per hour, which someone do the quick math on kilometers per hour. But you could get from LAX to downtown LA in 8 minutes, which is
220.
It's 220 kilometers per hour. But from downtown to LAX in 8 minutes is, if this were medieval times, we would be like, this is a miracle. Like someone performed a miracle. There's no other way to describe that. It will travel directly to your destination, right? So that's the pod thing, where it literally should pop up, on every corner or, within a half mile of anywhere. Obviously, it'd be fully electric. And if you're watching on YouTube, you guys should be seeing this here. So then they have these car elevators, and I think they have this diagram here. Yeah, so you can see that a station for the car elevator can be as small as a regular parking spot. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing this, but if you're listening, it's basically the size of a car, like literally a parking space is how big the entry and exit would be.
Don't open your doors.
Yeah. Somebody's going to do that.
I don't know if they even have a clue as to what would happen next after they do that. So right now, the test tunnel, is, as last reported, is right near SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne. It's a 2.7 mile test tunnel, and this is essentially what they'll be doing for a public show, or launch, to let everyone come test it, give feedback, etc. So it should be cool, man. I mean, this whole thing promises to really do a lot in terms of helping transportation. So, yeah,
this is one of those companies that I'm really excited about, but I think is a lot of people there's so much doubts that it's just like vaporware stuff. It's like, you don't doubt when a company is boring a tunnel anywhere else, so why do you doubt that they're not boring a tunnel here? Like, what's your doubt? I don't get it.
I mean, can you guys think of an easier thing for these guys to take on than just digging tunnels? Maybe this is my Dunning-Kruger effect. But
I was just thinking that, because I'm sitting here like, they're rocket scientists and doing electric propulsion. This is easy. Digging tunnels, easy. And I'm sure some tunnel engineers out there's like, no.
If you are a tunnel engineer listening to this, please correct us. Tell us what is actually hard about this. Compared to not just hard, but compared to doing water landings off the coast of Cape Canaveral,
right?
Those seem much more difficult.
Fundamentally, I guess. But I think the cool thing is, and for those of you that are wondering, like, why are they doing this? What's the breakthrough? Blah blah. A friendly reminder that the few of the things that are kind of unique is that typically with boring companies and boring machines, they're huge. Like, I don't know if Ben, can you pull up one of those like ginormous boring machines like in Tokyo that looks like it could eat an entire city? It looks like a worm that's fighting Godzilla, and it's terrifying. And these things are huge, and literally the piping and all this infrastructure to keep that thing moving and feeding the dirt out and all of the, like, they are actually terrifying. I don't want that in my heart. Look at that. Okay, if you're on YouTube, you're missing out here, because this is a tunnel that's the size of Miami, basically. And, could just eat your whole family. All your children could just go bye-bye at this thing. Oh, that's so
Tremors
scary.
2020.
Hide your kids. Hide your wife.
The tunnels is here. But a lot of it is like, these are, machines that typically run on diesel, I think. They're big machines that have a lot of emissions that have to be accounted for. And that's not easy when you're underground and can asphyxiate. There we go. Your entire crew working with it. So that's one of the cool things about the boring companies. They're using electric batteries and Tesla technology to mitigate that. They no longer have to worry about fumes and stuff. That's a huge breakthrough, and it hadn't been viable before, but now you have a company that, we make a lot of batteries and good electric motors. Let's utilize it.
If people are interested, that information session on the Boring Company's YouTube channel with Steve Davis and Elon was really, I mean, when I was listening to it, you're going through and you're like, okay, like that seems obvious. That seems obvious. That seems obvious. Like everything they were saying was like, And then it goes back to like, how come no one's already been doing this? You know, it could be that Kruger effect of like, yeah, there is a very good reason, but apparently these guys seem to have solved it. Like, so I think they're even building a tower or something that is made out of bricks that they make from the dirt that they get out of the tunnel. Yeah. So,
aren't they opening a brick store? Isn't that part of it? I've heard a little bit, but I haven't.
We talked about that on the show, didn't we? That they're opening a brick store. I think that's where I heard it from.
Store. I know they were going to sell them. I don't know if I didn't hear about the store.
They already have it like right there in Hawthorne. Like, look it up. The brick store, Boring Company brick store, and I think they're selling bricks for really cheap and or giving them away for like low income
kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be funny. It's like, hey, honey, here you go. Merry Christmas. Here's a brick. No, it's a really cool brick. It's really cool. There's a story. Let me explain. No.
I'm trying to think of a really bad NBA player we could call the brick store.
How about the guy that doesn't believe we walked on the moon? What's his name again?
Oh, he's actually a really great player. That's the thing.
Crap.
Stephen Curry. He's like MVP.
Nice try, Stephen Curry. You're going to the brick store, baby. I don't know.
Give him a brick made out of regolith.
Oh, well, Boring Company.
So in addition to Boring Company stuff, we have some Tesla news coming up too, guys. Did you hear about the Model Y stuff going on?
I haven't seen updates on Model Y. No.
Modelo
I'm not familiar with this Model Y.
Modelo
Why are we talking about it?
Yeah, why would we do this? Okay, Model Y, recap, the cheaper SUV for Tesla, right? I think it technically is a crossover SUV.
Yeah.
Probably around $45,000 base cheap price, which in the SUV space for an SUV with this kind of tech and whatever is actually pretty good. But we'll see, right? We don't know those details yet, but that's kind of where it's all headed. There was a leaked document apparently from a former employee that sent it to Business Insider that Tesla is planning to ramp up production of the Model Y to 7,000 units per week at Gigafactory 1 in Nevada.
Hold on. Wait, before you go any further, I think you have the wrong screen up for us because we're looking at even Elon abuses Tesla Autopilot.
My mistake.
We're still in rage mode.
Still in rage mode. We should be looking at leaked documents revealed Tesla had aggressive production.
Ooh, I have not seen this yet. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
All right. So the plan, according to this document, is that they will ramp up Model Y production to 7,000 units per week at Gigafactory 1. That's new because Gigafactory 1 does not make cars. They make battery packs and powertrains. But the entire thing, I believe, is about 30% built. So there is still a ginormous amount of space to add to this facility. And so if this is true, this would be a shift in direction, meaning that they would also make cars there. Now, a factory of that size could make a ginormous amount of cars. In fact, I'm guessing the population of nearby Reno is going to increase by a significant percentage for all the workers if this becomes a reality. They also said that in this document that they would start making 5,000 Model Ys per week at the currently unbuilt China Gigafactory by the end of 2020 or early 2021. Now, there's been a lot going on with the China Gigafactory lately. There's been a lot of leaked videos. Apparently, these things are in process, and the factory is actually already under construction. Companies that are going to be building it are ordering parts, all this kind of stuff. A Tesla spokesperson did respond about these documents and said they were outdated. So they didn't say they were wrong. They didn't say, no, we are not doing that. They said that is outdated. Okay, so maybe now it's 7,500 units per week. I don't know, but
maybe it's 5,000.
Yeah, right. But anyways, because they didn't refute this and say no, that's not true. I think it leads a lot of people to believe that is what's going to happen, and I think a lot of us are pretty excited about that. One of the things that some people have stated is that this will be a very aggressive timeline for them. And they've already went through Model 3 production hell, so now you're going into Model Y production hell. And it's one of those things where if they want to remain profitable, as they've stated before, this may be more challenging than it sounds. But again, that's kind of Tesla's MO. Set incredibly aggressive deadlines, don't hit them exactly, but come close. And because of that coming close, it's actually, better than they probably would have done otherwise. So, that's kind of the big news. There's some other stuff here about it. I don't know if you guys know, but one of the things that Tesla is going to do with the Model Y that's interesting is they'll have these flex circuits, which somebody that knows more about this can comment and let us know all the things I'm about to say that are incorrect. But basically, the Model S and Model X have reportedly 3 kilometers of wiring. You like that, Tim? I'm using kilometers here.
Yeah, baby.
And then the Model 3 cut that in half and is down to 1.5 kilometers of wiring. So a really big improvement on efficiency and cost and all those things. This flex circuit technology reportedly will allow them to reduce the amount of wiring for the Model Y down to 100 meters. So extreme reduction in the cost and increase in efficiency and everything if they're able to pull it off. This is what a lot of people think Elon was referring to when he said the Model Y will be a revolution in manufacturing. So that's kind of the big deal. We don't really have any official images yet, but there was somebody on YouTube here that has done these renderings, potential renderings of the Model Y before. So, we kind of have what this may or may not look like. I'm imagining.
Who's this YouTuber?
It's John Pisser.
Jan Pisser.
He's a Pisser Design, I believe.
Cool.
But he's done these in the past, and they're pretty good. So there is a little teaser image, and then that's kind of where he's basing it on. So a lot of people are really thinking that this will look like kind of like how the Model S is you just suction cup the top of the Model. I'm sorry, the Model X is like you took a Model S and just like pulled it up a little bit and kind of like stretched it out. I think that's what people are imagining you do to the Model 3 for the Model Y.
I kind of hope not, because I honestly wasn't a big fan. I'm still not a big fan of the way the Model X looks like, because it does look like it just was a suction cupped Model S too much to me.
Right.
So I hope they can, I don't know, give it a little bit more pizzazz.
I'm sure it'll be good. Now, why would Tesla do this? Well, because the crossover SUV segment, which is where the Model Y will likely fall, is almost 40% of the U.S. market as of September 2018. I mean, this is like the next largest category is just over 15%. So this easily is the biggest kind of carrot for them in terms of which segments to go after. They already kind of dominate in the passenger cars, like the Model 3 is like number 5 or something like that consistently. In the luxury space, the Model S crushes a lot of the other competition in the US anyways. And the Model X, it hasn't done as great, but this probably will do. I mean, a lot of people are estimating the Model Y will have a greater demand than the Model 3 does even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just due to the nature of that class, it has more potential. So if it's as big of a hit as the 3 is in its class, then it could be huge.
Yeah. Well, and look what's number 2 on that list.
Yeah,
which is the next one.
The pickup.
Yep.
I'll bet you anything when they announce the Model Y, they'll pull a roadster and semi trick and like bust out a pickup while they're at it.
A pickup will back out of the Model Y.
That's how it'll go.
It'll increase in size somehow.
There'll be a semi there, and you'll go, "Why is the semi
Here's
here?"
how much space is in the Model Y.
And then we can fit a whole pickup in it.
And then people will complain that Elon is abusing the semi again.
Yeah.
And we're back to where we started.
That's not how semis were meant to be used.
But it is supposed to be in the next year, right? For the Model Y reveal?
March. Yep.
Oh, in March. Okay.
March
cool.
is the reported date for that. We haven't heard anything different.
So that would be 3 years to the day that they first announced the model, not to the day, but to the month that they announced the Model 3.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then if one thing that's interesting is I'm really interested in the cycle time here, which is what I would call the time it takes from them to unveil a new product to the time it's actually available or people are receiving it. Because I believe when you look at maybe not the Roadster, but the Model S and then the Model X, it's like the volume production that they were able to reach was about like twice as fast. So the Model 3 was able to reach however many units per week, twice as fast as the Model S did. So I think it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, it still may be 2 years, but if it's 2 years and you're getting a Model Y, are they double where they were at with the Model 3 because of the flex circuit and the Gigafactory or whatever other kind of gains they could make?
Well, I'm curious, and I'm sure we'll find out when it gets launched, how similar it is to the Model 3. Like, is it on the same skateboard?
That's what's reported, but we'll see. Because,
I mean, when they did the Model 3, they went, and there was a huge departure from the S all the way down to the types of batteries that they used, So, and of course, like you said, they learned so much with the tent and all that kind of stuff with the Model 3. So I'm wondering how much that will get applied to the Model Y, how much is coherent with the Model Y and the way it's built and everything. And I'm curious how much faster it's going to come out, like you just said. I'm just repeating everything you're saying.
I have two kind of funny thoughts or things. One is, okay, I know this is how cars are. I know cars are really just four wheels and an engine anyway. But for some reason, when you imagine the Model 3 and the Model Y being on the same platform, then like, okay, the car these days is basically a screen and a steering wheel and some seats. So, like, is the only thing really that's changing, like, do you have the choice of the roof being here or you have the choice of the roof being here? Like, how different now can we make these vehicles? You know what I mean?
I'll give you and I probably should do a video on this, like, a couple things I'm hoping for in the Model Y. Hatchback design.
Yes.
I think would be a big win, and because you have more space. So one of the reasons they didn't do the hatchback on the Model 3 was because it would have caused the roof line in the back to be so close you would have no headroom. That was what they reported. So in order to get the better headroom in the back, they couldn't have a hatchback right there. But they said
cabbage.
Why
don't they just?
Yeah, right. So I'm hoping to see a hatchback on the Model Y, which would make a lot of sense for a crossover SUV where you can fit a lot more stuff. I also would like to see a bigger range. I know a lot of people commented on the video I did about this, like there's no way that's going to happen. But with a bigger footprint, if they make the skateboard just 3 inches longer, maybe, I don't know. Again, maybe it's obviously not as easy as it sounds, but hopefully you could do something like raise the floor up, double that battery pack up, give me 400 plus miles. I think, and the reason I say that is because two things. This car is coming out 2020, 2021. We're going to start seeing, Rivian has reportedly a 400 mile plus SUV at that same time, which I think a lot of people would actually prefer over the Model X. So that's going to be a winner if they can produce it. So I think 400 miles is not something in 2 years we're going to be scoffing at. Right now, it's kind of like, oh, what are you thinking? Oh my God, how could you do it? But really, in a couple of years, I think that's going to become normal. So I would hope that this car or this vehicle would have 400 miles at least. So 400 miles, maybe obviously supercharger V3, so faster charging than what you currently have, and hatchback design. I think you'd have a winning product. And no Falcon Wing doors, please. Just regular doors. Mm-hmm. We don't need that innovation, I would say.
That quote unquote innovation. Yeah. But the other thing I was going to query you on is like, so the Model S is now coming up on, it'll be like 6 years basically, right? 2013?
Since the original release?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2012 I think was kind of the first, when they first were coming out, back when they had a 40 kilowatt hour Model S, which they don't even, they stopped making very early on. 2013 was kind of really like when they really started, and then that was pre-Autopilot. So then post-Autopilot is where things changed again dramatically.
So like 6 to 7 years really on a very similar platform. And do you think we'll start seeing the like an update in the Model S?
I hope
maybe
so.
next year.
We'll see an update to the S and X at the Model Y event. I would not be surprised at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with that, I don't know if we'll get much of a design change. I'm guessing that the outside of the car will remain pretty consistent with its look. I mean, the Model X is still new in that sense, and the Model S has got a refresh in late 2016 or mid 2016. So that's still relatively new in probably Tesla's terms for a design refresh. So I don't imagine that'll change. I would really hope to see again a 120, 140, 160 kilowatt hour pack, which again would hopefully give us over 400 miles. And in order to do that, of course, they have to change probably the cells they're using, and maybe something about the skateboard design that they've been using. So those aren't trivial changes, right? If I understand correctly, you have to modify how the tooling works in order to make those things a reality. So there's probably a whole lot that would go into that, but I would hope to see some changes along those lines. So even if it's minor, even if it's kind of behind the scenes, just longer range, faster charging, things like that.
I assume they're going to eventually go to the 2150 cells.
Yeah, the 2170s.
For the S and X. 2170,
yeah. Yeah.
I got 3 of the 4 numbers right.
Yeah, well, it's actually 21700, but yeah, that's what a lot of people expect. But again, in order to make that change, it's changing a lot of how all the pieces build those things already. So it's not just like which batteries we want, AA or AAA. Oh, let's go here. It's not as easy to just changing that. Like you have to change the actual pack, the modules, and all those things. Because they are a different size. Even though ever so slightly, it's enough to where you would have to modify your tooling. So.
Yeah, it seems though like it would behoove them to have all of their cars work on so that they could be more modular. Yeah, so they could create the same battery packs, obviously with differences in size and whatnot. Yeah. For all of them, it would sort of streamline things, I would think. Why don't they just do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
On this episode of Why Don't They Just? So should we say why don't they just build a bigger rocket?
Why don't they just land rockets on the water? I don't get it.
You guys ready to go on to that?
Let's hear it.
All right.
Seems please.
So I released a video this week, and I really just like talking about this rocket because it's something that I have been waiting to dive in until we actually had some good content on it. And finally we did get some, so I was able to produce a worthwhile video. And it was about Blue Origin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Blue Origin. That's Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon's rocket company. And to date, they hadn't been doing much. They had been launching a rocket about this big, which is about the same size as Falcon Heavy's landing legs. We're talking a not very big rocket, but its purpose wasn't to do that crazy with stuff. Its purpose is there's a little capsule that stands on top of this thing, and people are on that capsule right here. And yes, we all know it looks phallic. Perhaps the most phallic rocket in existence. But people ride on top of that thing. They have a nice, safe ride. They come back down on a parachute. Meanwhile, the booster lands propulsively. It's called the New Shepard. It's going to start flying customers starting next year already, which will be really exciting. So I love this little thing. It does its job phenomenally well. But there's been so many people that are like, well, Blue Origin, they can't do anything but a little suborbital hopper. Why are people, saying that they're going to be some awesome new company or whatever? How they can't compete with SpaceX, they can't compete with ULA, yada, yada, yada. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that ULA or that Blue Origin has been working on this rocket called New Glenn. And this, I can't even fit it in the screen here in this comparison because it's so much bigger physically than Falcon Heavy even. So they're going from a teeny tiny rocket that's smaller than Falcon Heavy's landing legs to an orbital rocket that is the next biggest rocket almost in comparison would be the Saturn V. So the biggest rocket ever made. So we're talking many orders of magnitude in size and power and capability and everything. So in my video, I kept saying this is going from a canoe to a cruise ship or a Cessna to a 747, this is as big a leap as you can take as a rocket company. And then people, are so how serious can you take this? Well, maybe a lot of people don't realize that out at Cape Canaveral, I've driven by it, several times. There's a factory there that is basically like the size of the vehicle assembly building at NASA, almost like on its side. It's huge. It is so big, and it has to be that big to make big rockets. I mean, this is a hundreds of millions of dollar mega factory, basically, right there at the Cape. That's what I like about it, is it's this picture on YouTube. You'll see, this is also on my website, everydayastronaut.com. You can kind of see all these pictures and stuff too. But this is the factory here in the foreground. The launch pad's only, 15 kilometers, about 10 miles away. So it's not very far. So think about building a rocket and taking it out to the launch pad right there. That's great. You don't have to ship it across the country and do all these crazy things. Where do you
do your static fire test, though?
Probably on the launch pad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or if that is if they do static fire. Static fire is like a full all-up static fire. Isn't traditionally done by most aerospace companies. That is SpaceX is the only one that I know of that static fires religiously, like over and over and over, the same rocket multiple times, all up even. It's normal for a company, once they develop a rocket, then they'll be like, hey, do one per the entire future of all upcoming rockets. They'll test one to make sure everything's good before they fly it. And then static fires don't really exist after that. They'll fire the engines maybe, do some other stuff like full fuel loads and things like that. But static firing is pretty unusual. That being said, it's not unheard of that if they build their launch pad correctly, they could potentially do static fires.
You'll have to do it when you first start just to make sure it's going to work. But then after that, unless you change something dramatically, you're good.
Potentially. And that's up to the engineers to decide if that's, because it is kind of a risk, to static fire. You're going through many of the parameters that you would during a mission. So, if flying is risky, then so is static fire to some degree too. So anyway, it's not a paper rocket factory. This is very real, has millions of dollars invested. Jeff Bezos is investing personally $1 billion per year into this. They have customers for this already. These engines are done, basically. These same engines are even going to be used by ULA. So Blue Origin will be selling it off to ULA for their Vulcan rockets even. So we're talking about, when people dismiss this as like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. It's like, I'm already seeing it here. Mm-hmm. Like, this is already happening. Start believing. Like, I get some skepticism in rockets because stuff gets canceled all the time, but this is not going to get canceled. It's too far along. It will fly. Whether or not it's 2020 or 2021 or 2022, 2023, whatever, who knows? Timelines slip all the time, but it will fly.
And they're going to land on a drone ship also?
They are going to land on a drone ship.
Man, and they did not have that idea until SpaceX did it, right?
They actually had a patent in 2010 to land on a drone ship. So
SpaceX is infringing on their patent.
It got shut down in the U.S. patent court or whatever it's called, U.S. court of stuff where you sue people, and it basically it was too novel. It wasn't a novel concept per se. Like, it's been in textbooks and stuff in the 50s and 60s even. So the thing that I guess the key that Blue Origin tried to patent was the idea that it'd be moving, because their ship's actually going to be moving.
Okay.
So it won't be static. SpaceX stays static. By moving it, it eliminates most of the waves. Like a ship moving through the ocean is a lot smoother than one sitting. Wow. And then they try to patent a way of making it so the two vehicles communicate to where, they're each one's trajectory, and figure out like where they'll meet basically at the same time. Like what coordinates they can agree on that they can both hit when the rocket's coming down. Essentially.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so they do need to talk to each other, which probably has some pretty fancy systems. So this thing is huge. Let me get down to the comparisons here. And this is a lot of people, were harping at me for not comparing this to SpaceX's BFR / Starliner, Starship and Super Heavy. So the reason is it's getting close to the size of Starship and Super Heavy. Like, it is very, very big, but it is only a quote unquote heavy class launch vehicle. It doesn't launch more than 50 metric tons, which is getting into super heavy territory. Heavy lift launchers are ones that can loft 20 to 50 kilograms into orbit. And we'll maybe skip down to that real quick. So this is capable of 45 tons. So it is at the very upper end of a heavy lift launch vehicle. The Falcon Heavy is 30 tons, as I talked about at the beginning of the show. Where people were saying on Wikipedia it says 62 tons. Well, yes, if you throw it all away. But of course, the whole point of these vehicles is to hopefully not throw them away, right? You know, that yes, you could, and there might be the rare mission. There's so few things that we ever fly that are heavier than, I mean, even 45 tons, 30 tons, that's a huge payload. I can't think of, that's bigger than anything the space shuttle could ever fly.
A lot of little basketball-sized satellites.
It's a ton of little basketball satellites, if that's what they were trying to do. Like, there's almost no need for super heavy capability. So, you know, that's not what this vehicle's trying to do. It's trying to just bring the cost down. Both of these, New Glenn and Falcon Heavy. And of course, then to that degree, so is, Starship / Super Heavy is also taking that to another step. So this is the New Glenn, and I wanted to kind of talk about it because in my video, I don't want to just regurgitate my video. That's not why people would, I don't want to just sit here and do that. What I wanted to talk about is we're seeing some new hints about what BFR / Starship Super Heavy, I'll call it Starship Super Heavy, what that might be. So I did want to kind of bring it up here since this, the other reason I did this exact comparison are these are all rockets that have won contracts for the U.S. Air Force. All of them have significant funding, or they're already flying contracts, like the Delta IV Heavy and the Falcon Heavy will be flying a U.S. Air Force contract next year. So these are all, that's why I lumped these together. Not only are they in the same class, not only in the same class as heavy vehicles, they're all U.S. made and in the Air Force contract range of capability. So that's why I compared these exact rockets. Of course, we could have thrown it against any other rocket out there, but I thought that was a fair comparison because they're all competing for the same contracts, literally. So anyway, so I wanted on this show then to talk a little bit about how this is going to maybe stack up, and if New Glenn will kind of stack up against the Starship Super Heavy. Because we're getting new clues about Starship Super Heavy. So this is my friend Pauline, and she shoots for Teslarati, and Teslarati, of course, does just an amazing job of staying on top of this stuff. Probably better than anyone else out there. I think they're the most prolific, we're going to get stuff out there right away. Pauline is, I swear she has to be married to the port because she is out there all the time. She's so dedicated. She spends she goes down to the port almost every day and is checking out stuff going on at the factory there, checking out when rockets landed stuff. And she works super, super, super hard. So make sure if you guys are Twitter users to follow Pauline and Teslarati. She's at Wookie33, but it's spelled W00K. I-33, or is that Wookiss? I guess I don't know. I never realized that. I always thought it was Wookie. I don't know. Wookie. Anyway, so this sparked a thing. I just commented on Pauline's thing, and it says, God, those things are massive, aren't they? Still shocks me every time because we're looking at pictures of grid fins. These are the grid fins on top of the booster of a Falcon 9 rocket. This is the rocket that was reused 3 times, or reused twice, flown 3 times, technically. And so we're seeing the grid fins off this thing. It is a monster. You realize in these photos that Pauline took just how crazy big they are. I mean, it hurts my head. This is, I decided I'm going to make a mattress stand out of one of these someday so that my bed is just grid fins. That is the coolest piece of machinery ever. So anyway, I mentioned, God, those are massive, aren't they? Still shocks me every time. And notice I don't have Elon tagged in this or anything. And he's like, as far as we know, it's the largest piece of titanium casting in the world. Major improvement over the old aluminum grid fins, as the titanium doesn't need heat shield or painting, or even painting.
Does need hydraulics, though.
They do need hydraulics to work. So now here's where this starts to get interesting, because I started trying to answer questions for people. What's the actual booster made of? Steel? And I said aluminum. Some parts are carbon composite, the interstage. Their new Starship and Super Heavy will be all carbon composites, mostly. And I kind of knew that they'd been talking about it being metal, but Elon apparently was bouncing in here to correct me. The new design is metal, fairly heavy metal, but extremely strong. Oh, snap. So we're talking about Metallica. it seems like, so then I said, it seems like you've made some really big changes recently. Is this why we didn't get a big technical rundown at the Deer Moon thing in, when was that, September or IAC this year? So what's with the big mandrels at the port? Because they even showed that thing, giant carbon fiber rolling mandrels that they have bought and purchased and are rolling tanks at the port. And now they're going to scrap them and go metal.
Boring company design.
And I said, so are these carbon tanks shown off for the, wait, what did I say? So what's with the big mandrels at the port, or those carbon tanks shown off for the past couple of years? And he said, yes, as in like, yes to, this is why we didn't get big technical details this year. He said, but cool pics of the demo Starship that will fly suborbital hops coming in 4 weeks. 4 weeks. And
so next year, he didn't say which 4 weeks. He didn't.
In around 4 weeks from November next year. Yeah.
Actually, it says -4 weeks. So
no, that's a squiggly. It's in the past.
Squiggly? It's too far away. That's what happened 4 weeks ago, guys.
He needs an autocorrect. Anytime he types a number into something, it just adds a little tilde, like roughly
around, and doubles it automatically.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's some news that we got about the Starship Super Heavy, and that just kind of made me want to bring up, like, if you guys have questions about these things. So Starship Super Heavy, now it's in such a fluid design. Here's what I think happened. I think there's been a plan A to do carbon fiber because it makes sense on paper. It totally makes sense. You know, the Electron's made out of carbon fiber. They solved how to use carbon composites with cryogenics, which is very difficult. But maybe they realized as it gets bigger physically, some of those things actually don't quite work out as advantageous. And, you know, since they're going to be trying to reuse this stuff and, you know, need to re-enter these vehicles and survive the atmosphere and thermal protection, maybe carbon fiber is not the right answer. Maybe it's counterintuitive. And that's something he said in a previous tweet, was like, our new designs are super counterintuitive. And maybe it is like, hey, we're just going to make this thing made out of a heavy metal. And that way it can survive re-entry and it won't need as much thermal protection system. So this is going to be a curious, like, the new space race is on because we have New Glenn, which will be flying in 2021-ish. And very, very ready. But we know SpaceX's engines are getting close to ready. Those Raptor engines are working full steam ahead. This will be the engine that powers the Starship Super Heavy. And we're sitting here going, okay, we have billionaires actually racing to make giant, awesome rockets. Like, it's legit.
Not the size of the rocket that matters. It's how you use it.
This is true.
Tell me about the customers.
Yeah, Peter Beck.
Tell me about the customers on the Blue Origin. What is the point of that? What are you going to do? Like, fly in space, or?
Oh, you mean for the suborbital, for the New Shepard program?
The tiny guy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's literally just suborbital tourism. So the idea is, like, you can legally go to space. The definition by most people's standards is 100 kilometers, 62 miles. That's the Kármán line. So once you cross that, you can actually get, like, a badge of, like, saying you're an astronaut. Because that's how we...
And you'll waitlist? You'll
experience waitlist for about 4 minutes.
And they've got, what is it, the biggest windows ever in a spaceship? So you could literally, like, stand in the window and look out.
Have a really good view. A very, very good view. Yeah.
And how much?
6 people? Is that right?
Yep. 6 people.
How much is it going to cost me?
We don't know yet. But if we can compare, we do know Virgin Galactic's price is $250,000.
Yeah.
Per ticket. Do they have a referral program?
Now that I want to be a part of. My guess is I'm hoping the optimist in me hopes they can totally undercut Virgin Galactic and really gives, start up a new stir here, because that vehicle looks like it has relatively low operating costs of its reusable booster, the everything else. I would love to see flights for like $100,000 or something, because that means you can fly 6 people. They could get $600,000 out of it, spend, I don't know, $20,000 in fuel, refurbish it for a bit, do all these other things, and profit. Maybe
the mass market space tourist vehicle. Right.
Yeah, the $100,000 mass market space tourism vehicle. But there is a demand for it. There's been hundreds of people who have already put down $250,000 with Virgin Galactic even.
Yeah. And so Galactic's doing not just that, right? Because I have a friend that works there, but he's not working on that part of it. He said he's working on the commercial side of it.
Yeah, he's doing Virgin Orbit, which is their. I don't know who your friend is, but that's who
he used to work at SpaceX on the Dragon capsule, and then
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, they're doing. So they're doing Virgin Orbit, and that's where they're flying it underneath a. Is it a 747? Yeah, it is. It's an old Virgin Airlines 747, and they're launching payloads into orbit. I'll be doing a video on that soon because they're getting close to flying. But yeah, so that's So you asked why, kind of, what's the point of that little thing? Was that sort of?
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure what the why people would be on it, but it's a tourism kind of thing. That's what I wasn't sure of. Because you said people will be on it. I'm like, well, what's the point of being on it? Yeah.
Yeah, totally for fun.
Just to say you were on it.
Yeah, recreation, really.
Did Lance Bass ever go to space? Remember, didn't he?
He's waiting. I think he's a Virgin customer. Dead serious. He is.
A Virgin Galactic? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's waiting. And because they haven't started flying customers either yet. So
did the cool thing have a failure to launch the other day?
Yeah, but it's normal. That's okay.
So what's going on with that? Are they rescheduling?
Are we totally changing subjects all of a sudden?
You brought up ULA. You said they're super reliable and they always launch on time. And I feel like I was watching you the other day.
You know, scrubs happen. We've been really spoiled lately by a lack of scrubs. Like a surprising lack. I've gotten very spoiled because I just pop up a live stream hour and a half later after I started, I go to bed. Or whatever, I guess maybe breakfast or whatever the time of day is, but it seems to be night. But I've been super spoiled because we haven't had many scrubs lately, and they just had a normal scrub. I don't know. Well, we don't really have too many details on it, but so just checking stuff out.
Put a new date to relaunch that or anything?
They haven't yet, which might mean it's a bit of an issue that they're going through to make sure.
I know you said December's a pretty busy month, or for whatever reason this year it's busy.
Yeah, for this year, it just happened to be a packed manifest. But real quick, back to the little hopper, the New Shepard, though. One of the reasons that I'm excited about this is it's a great technology demonstrator for them and potentially a revenue maker. You know, they could. I don't think this is going to be like this isn't going to break the bank. They aren't going to make billions of dollars off this thing. But if they can recoup their engineering costs and learn how to propulsively land vehicles with this little thing, develop some of those algorithms, develop some of that stuff, and have it be paid for, like, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty slick system there. So I think that's, they can almost use it,
just to like test ideas and stuff, right? And just kind of say, let's see if this little, type of engine in a smaller scale works or something.
Yep. And that's what they did, basically. That's, they're using that BE3. So they've learned how to like throttle and do all that stuff that's important for propulsive landings. It's a very, very difficult thing to handle, but they nailed it. They got it down. Yeah.
I think it's time for us to do a podcast from space.
Ooh, can you imagine?
What would that sound like?
Well, the capsule's pressurized, so it'd sound normal, but maybe we can break the windows real quick and get a true silent broadcast.
Just open it, get some air going in there.
Or
in lieu of that, going on the vomit comment.
Yeah. Oof.
Oh, I don't know. That I think would make me sick.
Podcast ever would be impossible for us.
30 seconds. Hi, and welcome to Gravity's Back.
Yeah. We're talking 30-second increments.
Yeah.
And most of our talking would be,
I thought it was 7 minutes on that thing.
Blue Origin, is 4 minutes. The vomit comment is 30 seconds at a time.
30 seconds? But what, do you just go up and down a bunch?
But you do like 15 of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, Go. Did you guys see that video where they shot it in 30-second increments so they could actually do like zero gravity tricks and stuff for this music video, and they cut it together brilliantly. That was amazing.
Did Physics Girl go up with Simone Giersch?
I don't know if they went together, but I know both, or at least I know Diana has. I don't remember though if Simone has yet either. But yeah, definitely one of them has. I think Physics Girl went up with Veritasium. With what?
Yeah, Derek went up.
Derek, yep. Yeah.
Can I confess something?
Yeah.
So that was for National Geographic. They actually contacted me to do that too.
Why didn't he do it?
I don't really want to say because it calls out I have a rep that does my sponsorships, and so I was kind of like new with him at the time, and I was like, well, I need to let them handle it because I'm I'm sort of on a contract and everything. They're my exclusive. Anyway, it didn't work out with them. And if I could go back in time, I would be like, look, I'm just going to do this because this is like a bucket list thing. But no, they contacted me about it and it didn't work out, and I'm still super upset about it. But then I saw Derek's video come up and I was like, that's the thing that I could have been on. And yeah, it's a painful thing.
Well, let's do it then, guys. I know there's flights in Russia that still do it. I've looked into some of that.
In Russia?
Mm-hmm. Because I guess there's still the one here too, but it's no longer the NASA. They got rid of NASA's vomit comet.
This was called Zero G. Was the name of it?
Yeah, I think Zero G is still operating. I think actually out of the Cape. I don't really recall. But anyway,
Las Vegas is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Huh. But yeah, so that's kind of the news as far as, I feel like we kind of originally were going to talk about the Starship Super Heavy / New Glenn. And the moral of the story is on this topic is that Starship Super Heavy is changing so much right now. It's in such a massive shift change. They clearly got down to the end of the road with trying to do carbon fiber. And now they're in this new road and they're apparently fast tracking it full steam ahead. And so speculating too much on it right now would be suicide. It just would be outdated in 4 months or, 2 weeks even or something. It changes constantly as they're...
Welcome to my world with Tesla stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So that's why, but it will...
They aren't changing what the Tesla's made out of.
Well,
Model 3,
actually...
not made out of aluminum.
That's true. That's true.
I've only had it once where I did a whole video before we got an unveiling of the thing, and it was completely wrong. Everything I had in the video was I just had to throw the video away.
Crap.
I'll probably do that for a while. I'll probably have a whole video ready to go talking about everything that we previously had known, and just hopefully they don't scrap everything I said to make it invalid,
You're it doesn't have a steering wheel or seats. You lay down and sleep. That's the only thing it does. And then it comes out and it's a gas car.
I'm it's built on the Model 3 platform. Actually, no, they completely reinvented the whole thing.
And that's when we all go, oh no.
Yeah, it just happened.
This is going to be horrible.
No. Yeah.
Another production hell.
Yeah. Did I tell you guys, I don't remember if I was talking to you guys about this or not, but I would love, in that case, if educators, people that are trying to spread information. Did we talk about this last week?
Talked about it on Twitter.
Had a way to edit or re-upload fixes. Not necessarily re-upload the whole video, but even if you could insert a thing like a correction, or they used to have annotations that could pop up on screen. But to me, as an educator, that is the worst thing that happens in my job is when you post a video and 25 minutes later, someone finds a factual error and now you're spreading misinformation. And unfortunately, it's incentivized to not pull the video down because now you're, going to ostracize your viewers by double notifications and all these things that will totally hurt. So there's no incentive to be correcting it. And I think I would love if they address that a little bit because that's important.
I think it goes back to a little bit of the conversation earlier about people using it for malicious reasons, because you could have a video that's one thing and then it gets all this attention and buzz, and then you re-upload it with something else, that maybe points people in the wrong direction, or, for whatever reason is doing something bad.
Well, I would like to see that maybe
hard to maybe
I don't think it needs to be
or something.
Yeah, I was going to say not global and not for every user, not for every video, but even certain channels that are dedicated to education have gone through these steps of proving that they have some sense of academia and that they're, trying to do, whatever. There might be maybe there's a test or a review process of your channel.
And then a review of the correction would be useful, I think.
But even I don't know, I, for instance, just in this last video, accidentally left up. I changed slides out last minute because we had to change some numbers, and I forgot to change the conversion between kilonewtons and pounds on one rocket. So the Omega rocket has the wrong pounds number underneath it. I would love nothing more than to go back and then like just change the file out. But I don't want someone to have to approve that. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to trust in a select number of channels that, like, listen, if I ever abuse this, like, throw the gauntlet on me and ban me forever. But I want to use this for good. Like,
yeah.
Well, I know Vimeo lets you re-upload the video at the same URL.
Yep.
So you could make whatever change and then re-upload it. This might be one of those why don't they just things. I don't know why they can't still keep the annotations. That always worked for me in the old days. You could just like put a little annotation on there and like, this is actually wrong, whatever. And you can maybe even link it to a correction video. I've done that a few times.
I think the linking and stuff is where it gets a bit hairy though, because again, like people could have a viral video and all of a sudden they're sending it to a Viagra website to get whatever. And they were able to add that after the fact. And, so like it became popular for a good reason, but then someone, they use that traffic or whatever to, in some nefarious
That's
way.
why you don't let the whole user base do it, but let.
Yeah. And then you have the whole thing like Twitter verification. Great example. Like I saw someone comment like, if there was ever a symbol of like elitism from Silicon Valley, it was the Twitter verification badge, because now there is no way to apply for that. They simply select who is important enough to get it and who isn't. It's like, okay, guys. So people you disagree with, you don't like, don't get it, and people you do. So there's this bias and favoritism, and it's like. I think it's hard. If they had some universal standards, kind of like monetization, I think that would be okay. But to say only science educators get it or only a certain type of people, I don't think. I think it would have to be something that can be applied fairly across the board. Otherwise, it would be that elitism, favoritism type thing that creeps up in platforms.
Well, you can do some of the things we're talking about now with cards. And I've done that before where I got something wrong. So I just did like another video, maybe unlisted, not even make it public, but put a little card up there and say, I was wrong, click here to whatever. But most people don't click on those things. And
especially if they're like on a smart TV.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't even show up.
Oh, do they not show up?
No.
Yeah, you can't like click on that stuff on. So I would like to see something in between. Maybe it's even a way to like just do an overlay that's not a clickable overlay or something. Annotations used to be clickable. Maybe even just like a little. If I could just get a little white eraser marker, like one of those things, and just put a little text thing.
Yeah.
Like, let me just do that so that I'm not spreading misinformation,
Yeah. Well, just don't get it wrong. How about that?
I'm trying. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to argue that point, even it's the freshness of a topic matters a whole lot in how many people a video reaches. So you are incentivized to get things done quickly, which encourages errors.
Yep.
So it is kind of like forces working against each other, right?
We're back to the front part of the whole video, or today's discussion was like incentivizing the wrong thing and its potential negative impact on society.
YouTube is in a weird situation just because the scale of what they have to deal with is so massive that even minute changes can be like really, really hard to pull off, I think. So it's not a surprise to me at all that their platform is as now that we are going through a big change with this YouTube Studio Creator Beta thing, but in general, it is a very simple platform. And if you look at other platforms there, like Vimeo or some of the other ones that have much smaller audiences and a much smaller scale, they clearly can pull these things off at a greater pace. So it makes a lot of sense. But just thinking of the scale of YouTube it's really
insane.
Yeah.
when they have like 20 years worth of content uploaded every minute, it's how do you even how do you drink from that fire hose?
I mean, just like encoding a video so that it can play on mobile and different resolutions and at different bit rates on different devices. That alone is like a massive, massive feat. And unlike if we were to start our own video sharing platform, we could just like go to another company that provides an encoding service and have them do it for us. But because YouTube is so big, no one can do it, so they have to invent all that stuff themselves, right? It's almost like deep dive, but Google invented basically the way that big data works, with the Google file system, which was later adopted as the Hadoop distributed file system. But they had to do that because they had to index the entire internet to provide a search engine, right? And it was like they have to invent these things because there is nothing that can handle it. Which is why, they get all the kind of people that really want to work on bleeding edge technology, because those are the only places doing it. Everyone else is like, cool, there's a million different little services. I just kind of, bailing wire them together and boom, I've got a product. So it is like, I don't know. It's easy for us to complain about it, but it's why don't they just?
Yeah. Well, you guys deal a lot more with sort of breaking news type things than I do. Like, I kind of purposefully don't try to track the news because I'm really bad at getting my facts right anyway. And I always also go back on, I'm really more of a comedian that talks about science than a scientist that throws some jokes in every now and then. So just, take everything I say with a grain of salt and just, go see these other guys. They know what they're talking about. I have that little out, I guess, but I don't like, I guess I use something like this. I think this is a better platform for like breaking news kind of thing, or live streams. I tried that for a while and just didn't really like it. But actually making the videos, I try to make them more like evergreen, if that's the right word.
Mm-hmm.
People always want to know about inbreeding.
Decapitate.
Really?
How is that?
Yeah.
How is that video?
That was a great
How is it doing?
Say what now?
How is that video doing, the inbreeding one?
It peaked at around just over 800,000 views, so it did pretty well. No, it did really well. It's my second most viewed video.
It is?
Yeah.
So now you're gonna have to just be the decapitating like incest family videos or something. I'm gonna do videos about brother and sister praying mantises. Yes.
I'm glad you got that.
Period. That's awesome.
No, I mean it's funny because both of those are my Random Thursday videos. So my Monday videos are all very sciencey and technology based and futuristic or futurism, and then my Thursday videos are just I find this interesting, so I make a video about it. And I think I looked at the top 10 highest viewed videos, and I think 6 or 7 of them were the Random Thursday ones.
Really?
That's amazing.
There's a part of me that's like, maybe I should just make that my channel now. But I know everybody likes the science stuff, and I do too. So, and I think there's some really important topics that I cover on Monday videos that I don't really do them necessarily because I think they'll get a lot of views, but because I think it's important stuff that needs to be put out there.
I like the Dyson one. That was a good one.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
I really do think that they should stick to the Hyperloop, though. I think that would be a better.
Just because they know how to vacuum air out.
I mean, that's what a Hyperloop is. It's a vacuum tube.
It's a lack of air.
Well, and it's a maglev train in a vacuum tube, essentially. Neither of these ideas are new. I did a whole video on it, but no one's ever done them successfully together. Dyson seems like right up their alley to me. So.
It'll be interesting to see what they come up with, especially if they can get that solid state battery thing going.
If they do that,
it's
a big deal.
Not to go off on a different subject here, but like, I wonder if there's going to reach a point where, because battery technology is innovating and changing and probably faster than almost any other industry. It's like, which is a good thing. We need that. But I wonder if there's going to get to a point where the battery technology, some new breakthrough occurs, some company fast tracks solid state or something that just is better than what, say, Tesla has right now, and they have so much infrastructure in their company now based around these lithium ion cells. What's going to happen then? Are they going to suddenly become the company that's entrenched? Like the
internal combustion engines,
like the ICE cars are now. Well, or are they going to be able to switch, or like that's because it's going to evolve at some point. I mean, I think that's a given. So are they going to be able to evolve with it?
If you listen to JB Straubel, who's chief technical officer at Tesla, who arguably is a co-founder. I mean, he was the one, I believe, that really got Elon to pay attention to, I think a company was called AC Propulsion that made a kind of cool electric sports car thing. And then, unfortunately, what they were doing didn't work to scale, but it got Elon interested. And then that's when they went to Tarpening and the other one about Tesla, who was actually doing something. And he was like the battery guy, right? Mm-hmm. So you hear him talk about it, and at the latest earnings call, was it? Or the shareholder meeting, I forget. People asked him about the battery technology, like what's going on? I think it was specifically, hey, new Roadster, 600 miles, how? How is that possible, right? And they said, well, we think we can do it with existing tech, but that's not to say that we haven't talked to every single company and university doing anything related to batteries in the world, and we are interested trying to get ahead of this. So I would imagine, I mean, just from his enthusiasm and his background in it, I would imagine that I would not be surprised if somebody, with the exception of a competitor like Dyson wants to be, comes up with a solid state battery that can actually work at scale and going over bumps and, you know, in the road and stuff like that and crashes and can handle it. I would not be shocked at all if they're like, hey, we've got this thing, we know it'll work. Tesla, you want to buy it? And they'll be like, yep, here, $1 billion, boom, give it to me. That would be, I think, a very valid approach for somebody that's making this new battery tech. So you're right. I think it's a valid question, but the signs I've seen externally indicate that Tesla would probably be involved in that some way or another, with the exception of somebody like Dyson, you know, or if Bezos wants to do it, he's like, yeah, forget you guys, I'm doing it myself.
The Blue Origin car.
Wouldn't be surprised. I did have a question about that.
That would be crazy, Tim,
because Amazon's model often is to like undercut the cost of everyone else. And they can do it because they just have so much money. Is that at all their plan with space stuff? Are they going to be like, oh, New Glenn, it's only $1 million to launch. I know we're losing $300 million on it, but we're going to do that until SpaceX goes out of business, and now you have to come to us.
They could probably. Yeah. I mean, potentially. I don't have any pricing information yet. That's internal so far for like paying customers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but then again, like they could, you know, the suck and bleed type of thing or whatever. Like I totally get that. That's how Amazon operates on a lot of stores, but I could see them doing that to a certain degree. But in the space industry, you don't have to undercut by much. You know, you can undercut by 20%, and that's enough game changing that like you can run the market that way and still make a huge profit. So it'd be when there's not very much incentive for them. Like just like SpaceX right now could probably lower their cost, especially now that they're reusing boosters. They could potentially lower their cost by half. You know, they might be able to fly these missions for $30 million these days and still make a profit. But no one competing at that price, so why not charge the $60 million or whatever they're getting right now, recoup those investments? Yeah, you know, because the SpaceX already did that with the aerospace industry. They already came in and undercut everybody. Yeah. So yes, Blue Origin could do that same thing, but I don't think they're gonna pop up one day and be like $1.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering if it's like the scale of that cost is so great that maybe they couldn't do it. Right? Like I think the most famous example was diapers. Bezos wanted to buy diapers.com or something, and they wouldn't sell to him. And so Amazon started selling diapers, and I think it was like free for the first 3 months for any moms. And they started accepting like the not the food stamps, but the social like food stamps for moms, you know, for baby supplies and stuff. And so they basically just completely destroyed diapers.com until they went out of business, and then they bought it from them for like, you know, a penny of what they thought it was going to be originally. And then now diapers.com goes over to Amazon diaper section. And so it's like, it's, you know, but I'm just thinking like rockets, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. I don't know if they have that much money to like do that, you know, and try to undercut everyone else. But if the price is going down, it means it's cheaper to get things in space. I think it's better for all of us, really.
Yeah, it is, as long as they don't wipe out the entire competition along the way, which
right.
It kind of tends to be Bezos's plan on everything. But yeah, we'll see.
So something you didn't mention in your video, and maybe it's just because it's too early and we know nothing about it and it's all speculation, but
Armstrong.
There you go. You're ahead of me.
Yeah, I didn't even mention it. I teased that New Glenn is the smallest of their orbital vehicles that they have talked about. Basically, Bezos one time just said like, hey, wait, if you think New Glenn's big, wait until you see New Armstrong. Which, by the way, Ben, the implication of that is John Glenn, first person to orbit the Earth. Neil Armstrong, first American to walk on the moon, first person to walk on the moon.
So is he going to later have a new Musk for the first man to be on Mars?
That's the joke I keep getting in my comment section.
That's funny.
Oh, no, he didn't.
But yeah, New Armstrong. What? I mean, if New Glenn's quote unquote a paper rocket, I gotta wait a minute to see what New Armstrong will be. But that being said, their factory, factually speaking, like could make really big rockets. They have doors, like these rockets are 7 meters wide, so 25, 23 feet, whatever, 22 feet tall or wide. I mean, their doors are like quadruple that or something.
Yeah.
So like, why would you build that big of bay doors unless you're bringing some big pieces out of there at some time, at some point? That will be awesome. So
is that what's coming up next week for you, Tim?
Nope. I'm back to the canceled videos. I'm getting out part 2 ready because I want to actually do a series where I stick to it and make it past part 1. So
it sounds like you're canceling your videos.
I'm back to canceling videos.
I'm back to canceling videos. I'm back to canceled videos. That canceled series. I'm coming up on number 2, which will be a lot of fun. It has some really, really interesting canceled space programs that like this. The first 2 are ones that like actually flew first. That's like what this series is, like vehicles that freaking flew were proven to work and then they got canceled. Like that to me is, just equally frustrating, like 3 parts frustrating, but also like the sunk cost fallacy is thriving in a lot of these too though. So, that's what I'm working on. And, Joe, what are you working on?
I am still writing this. I was supposed to have had it done earlier this week and shot by today, and I'm still writing on it. But I'm calling it Climate Change Hail Marys. And so it's like mega projects that could reverse climate change that if the worst of climate change happens in the future, we're going to have to do this in order to survive kind of thing.
Whoa. Like those reflective clouds and stuff like that and like CO2 scrubbers out of the atmosphere type of stuff or...
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
There was a show about this where they were doing some crazy things. I remember trying to plant mangrove trees by dropping them out of a plane in these wax things, so it would like hit the sand and plant itself. And they could do like 10,000 in a drop because otherwise planting trees takes forever, kind of a thing. There was some show about this. I remember doing some really cool stuff. Yeah, creating clouds. Like intentionally to be more reflective and all that. So
wow.
No, there's an experiment that's already taking place right now in basically creating artificial volcanoes.
Volcanoes for the cloud.
Well, because a volcano it releases all this ash into the air and that becomes reflective, so the sunlight doesn't actually get to the ground.
Yeah.
And there's like a Harvard team that's doing an experiment on that.
There's some way of measuring that too, right? Was it a real engineering video or something where they talked about planting trees in the Sahara to reduce greenhouse gases, CO2 from the air or whatever? But then that would have a negative effect because the Sahara reflects a lot of the sunlight.
So it would actually absorb too much.
Yeah, so it's almost like not. I mean, it's not just like, why don't they just do that, right? It's like, hey, right. There's a lot more to think about it. I'm excited for that. That'll be good.
Yeah.
What about you, Ben?
It's a lot, and that's why it's taking me so long to get to it. And
got to get those facts right.
Yep. Due diligence, baby.
No changing the video for you.
Exactly.
I've got a couple. I'd be interested if people want to leave a comment. Let me know which one would be more interesting. I'm looking at 3 videos. One is I'm interested is so I just paid off both of my cars. And I had a lot of thought that went into why I did that. So I know a lot of people, like the beginning of my channel was me explaining how much I was paying for my car. So I thought it might be interesting to kind of break that down and say why I paid off my cars early. Just kind of, I think it'd be boring, but also kind of insightful for anyone that's in a similar position. The other one I was looking at was the Tesla pickup, kind of comparing what we know about that, which is all just tweets at this point, but just putting the specs together that we do have and comparing that to the Rivian truck, which is kind of more formal at this point. And the last one was looking at phantom drain by software version on the car and just kind of over time, because it seems to be when I look at this data, Tesla will, you see it pretty regularly. There will be a release that comes out, all of a sudden everybody on Twitter is screaming about phantom drain, and then 2 weeks later a new update comes out and it's fixed. And so you can kind of see these like bumps in history of phantom drain. And, during the winter months, it's obviously a bigger deal because of the colder temperatures. So Thinking about that, like that's more of a, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the outcome of that is of like, okay, be careful when you update your car or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any
what's the consumer advice.
Yeah. Wait for everyone else to do it first and see if it's gonna mess you up.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, kids, we did it. 13.
That's it.
Yeah.
And nobody, we didn't lose anybody.
Yay.
Nobody stirred the oxygen tanks.
Let's double check my recording's good, but it looks a little loud. Whoops. If it's peaky, I guess we'll have to use my other. I'm wearing 2 microphones today, so I'm not going to be the culprit.
Don't forget to subscribe to PewDiePie, everyone.
No.
Follow us in all our places.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. What do we do at the end here again? What is it?
We'll see you.
Oh, yeah.
In
our ludicrous future. Future.
Yay!
Future.